I'm blowing up. Game over.
2 race-winning contenders, 2 devastating late race problems.
I can't believe we had a gas, man.
We'll dive into what all went wrong next.
Yeah, that was gonna stink.
Welcome into a new episode of NASCAR Inside the Race presented by Consumer Cellular. I'm Larry McReynolds filling in for Steve Letarte and Championship Crew Chief Todd Gordon. Todd, if somebody cut that race off with about 20 or 25 laps to go, their question last night would have been, who won the race, Blaney or Bale?
It definitely would have been.
Not the case.
Yeah.
Not the case. What in the world happened? How did they recover from this? Because they were lights out.
Yeah, I think you look at it, it's different situations for the two. I think the 20 team looks back, Christopher Bell looks back at the Coke 600. We've got a W, and we've got pace. They were the best car. They were the fastest car there. In the broadcast, you guys talked about that. Not sure, you and I talked about this, I'm not sure who wins that race because it was a dogfight between the two of them, but I think they look back at, they've kind of made a little bit of a turn. Engine failure, whatever method it was, they're very rare today. So don't feel like that's a particular instance.
Right.
For the 12 team, they've had a string of bad luck here lately. You heard a little bit of that in Ryan Blaney's inflection afterwards, but they got pace.
They're making some of their luck too, though. Some of their bad luck.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're definitely true, but they've got pace. And when you have execution errors, but you've got speed, you can fix the execution errors. And I think they've just got to focus on that through the summer.
Well, we talked about the devastating days of the 12 and the 20, but how about that 2 team at Austin Cindric, Brian Wilson over at Team Penske, a team that only had 1 top 10 finish headed into St. Louis, but they were the ones celebrating in victory lane.
You put yourself in position to take advantage of other people's misfortunes and, a solid weekend for them. And you and I have talked about this. You have to win every facet to win these races. They qualified really well on Saturday, got themselves a good pit selection, called a solid race, great strategy race for the Team Penske guys, put themselves in position to take advantage of the misfortune of the 2 others.
Todd, that was his 8th top 5 finish, but that's his first top 5 at a non-super speedway or non-road course track. That has to make him feel good. That probably has to feel relief. But I think the other story, Todd, we know track position was so important. And tire fall off was so little, as it has been at St. Louis. We saw it there, even though they changed the tire, we saw it the first 2 races there in 2022 and 23. But the number of pit stops, Team Penske, they spent the least amount of time on pit road as anybody else, doing 3 stops. Everybody else, including Joe Gibbs Racing, they were going down the road of 4.
Yeah, and if you look at it and play this forward, just the days of the 20 and the 2 car, they both came here at the end of stage 1.
Lap 49 roughly, yeah.
So we've got this stop right here. Both of them came, but that's where their days separated from there forward. If you look at this and try to put some numbers on it, Austin Cindric, 1 stop here. He's got 1 stop here and 3rd stop here. Did it on a 3-stop strategy. We saw this out of a few. The Penske cars committed to this. Carson Hocevar had a double to start with, but got on the strategy a while, came out with a great day. The 20 car and most of the field, 4-stop strategy. If you look at this coming forward for the 20 car, you've got to stop here at the end of stage 1. Then they shortened up and ended up with 4 stops. The pace of the race car, they could have called 5 stops if I looked at it, because I felt like they just had a lot of pace in the race
car.
Yeah,
the one thing they did do on that 3rd stop at lap 144, that was at the end of stage 2 under caution, they did go with right side tires only, which bought them just a little bit of track position. But it just appeared the least amount of time you could spend on pit road, and that was the plan. And it all kind of changed. It really took a look when I think at the end of stage 2, the Team Penske cars just stayed out. They did not come to pit road.
It led to a great battle. If we go back and watch it, this is, as you referenced earlier, this is 25, 30 laps to go. Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney putting on a heck of a show.
Yeah, I mean, Bell had run Blaney down, but look at the different grooves that they were running. And this was kind of lap after lap after lap. And you would see Blaney up there in that 3rd groove. In fact, we talked about it earlier. He jumped the cushion a couple of times, but he would get that good run off the corner down those straightaways.
Definitely did. And a couple times here, I didn't know if Christopher Bell was going to clear him, and I thought he might be in trouble. Right here,
Blaney.
Christopher Bell actually does clear him. But the run you talked about him getting turned right back to the bottom. and pulls him back. Blaney maintained the lead through this cycle. It was a great dogfight between these two.
Well, and we all know what ended this dogfight was the engine going south on that 20 car. We just don't have engine failures anymore. Now, the one variable is shifting 6 to 8 times a lap at this 1.25 miles. That's a lot of upshifting, but more than anything, that's a lot of downshifting.
And let's go back. We've got some in-car for this. Let's listen to this from the 20 cars perspective.
Any symptoms? What'd it do? Just
No
laid
symptoms.
over, no power?
Yeah.
Any smoke or smell? Sound?
Well, a little bit of smoke, sound, no smell. I don't know. It was like I don't know if it dropped a valve, but it seemed like it hurt me on the top end more than the bottom end.
I think we would have saw smoke out the pipes.
Yeah, true.
I wonder if it burned a plug wire, like a rubber fire, something like that.
Yeah. Because I leaving it in a fourth gear, I could still get off the corner okay, but it just like over a certain RPM, it wouldn't go.
So as we listen to both of those conversations, the in-car and the conversation with Adam and Christopher there, I didn't hear anything in the in-car that was like negligent. No. I didn't hear a double shift that put a ton of RPM. I did hear the skip coming off the corner. And you hear in that conversation with Adam a lot of questions. He's barraging him with questions, trying to figure these things out. As a crew chief, we want to figure the problem out immediately.
Yeah, I think maybe instead of sitting there and interrogating my driver, I'd have probably had the hood up with a speed handle, taking valve covers off to see if something jumped out to see. I'd be willing to bet something going on underneath those valve covers. We never saw smoke or anything like that, so I'm sure it got dove into as soon as those haulers got back to Joe Gibbs Racing for sure.
Yeah, and in that environment, NASCAR still has control of those cars because he was a stage winner. They're not going to let you dive under there. But I'd say when that thing got on the lift gate, a valve cover came off, so they got a peek at it before they hopped in an airplane. But we'll understand this week how that played out. That put the race in the 12's hand and really not the eventual winner.
Yeah, so Blaney now, he is the leader. But he's got his teammate back there, Austin Cindric, that we had talked about, had been so strong. And of course, on a pit stop under green there with about 63 or 64 laps to go, Blaney had leapfrogged Austin Cindric. But it all came down to, how quick the pit stop was. But I think ultimately what the difference was is who put what fuel in those race cars.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things. We've got the background here. Blaney, coming to the white flag. Cindric in the view there, giving a little pressure, but runs out of fuel, taking the white flag. I think when we look at this, I don't think it's lap dependent. I know Blaney came a lap before Cindric did. We looked at it. It was 70 some laps you could run on fuel. They
70,
stopped with 75,
64
or 5 to go. I think it has to do with how much fuel you put in the car and how quick these pit stops are. When you look at it, let's dive a little deeper into this. Well, here's Blaney coming in for his last stop, and we've got a timer up here in the right-hand corner of how long the gas can's plugged in. This will give this back. If you look at it, 3.4 gas man comes back. Pretty quick stop. I think it was a 10-1.
10-1, yeah.
And 7.2 seconds of fuel flow time there. We look at these gas cans. It's just under 2 gallons a second that they can dump. If that's 2 cans, that's 14 gallons of fuel. But that wasn't. If we go back and watch this from a different angle, that was 1 can that they used here.
And it appears to me, Todd, that Jonathan Hassler, he has the intent of only putting 1 can in, because you see the other cans back here, they're pretty much just on the stand back there. There's no intent. I'm going to dump the 1 can, and that's all I'm doing right there.
So although we had time to dump 14 gallons of fuel, these gas cans only hold 12 gallons. So he got all of that 12 gallons in, but that's all they got in coming forward here. And Jonathan was aggressive call here. Remember, Ryan Blaney was behind Austin Cindric and wanted to get in front of him. They pitted a lap shorter.
And they accomplished that.
And they had a shorter stop by doing it this way. Brian Wilson brings the 2 car to pit road in a similar situation, little slower stop, I think an 11.8. We've got the same counter going there, kind of put it together from a couple different angles here, but you see a second can comes in, plugs in. When we look at this one as it comes out of here, 9.6 seconds is what we showed there. That's close to 18 gallons of fuel that they can dump. And when we go from that same angle, the pro trailer side of this, you see that second can right up here. That can's no longer in the rack up there.
Right. They have full intent of dumping part of that second can in this 2 car. And that's the call the crew chief makes. Go with 1 can or get me some of that second can in there.
You see that exchange right there that happened behind the wall. There's a second can coming, and we come forward. That gets them the opportunity to dump the fuel out of both cans. I think they probably got 8 gallons out of the first can, probably got close to 10 out of the second. They've got well more than 12 gallons in this car.
Yeah, and again, they gave up about 1 3/4 seconds on this pit stop. Now, of course, if Blaney does not run out of fuel, they're going to lose the race right here. But all Blaney needed was about 1/4 gallon more fuel, just a little over 1 lap.
And I really feel like as Monday morning, we can always make the best calls, right? If there's any caution that happens behind this, Hassler looks like he's in a great position because that'll buy you some more fuel mileage. But if you look at it, if they'd gone to 2 cans, with the flow time they had plugged in and what they could have had plugged in, they still could have gotten that extra gallon of fuel that would have got him to the end.
Yeah, I heard Brian Wilson in his interview say he was a little disappointed how slow the stop was, but obviously he was the one celebrating over there in victory lane. Well, that's how it kind of broke down for 3 of the top contenders, but there was another contender that finished in the top 5, had a little different strategy. We come back, we'll break that down, risk versus reward.
Hey guys, I'm Corey LaJoy, driver of the number 7 car, joined my buddy Ryan Flores. Every week we stack some pennies. Talk about NASCAR Cup Series right out of my windshield.
Plus, we'll give out the dogs of the week for the best pit crews and pit crew guys from the weekend. We'll break down all the money stops, all the woes, get into some technical issues, and we'll also answer all of your hashtag Penny for Your Thoughts questions.
And we have a ton of guests. Sometimes SVG pops by, we got Raja, we have all sorts of guys. You never know who's going to pop in the Nonsense Garage, but make sure you tune in. SiriusXM on Tuesdays, YouTube on Wednesdays, wherever you find your podcast on Wednesdays as well. Come stack pennies with us.
Todd, there's been so much talk about this new Ford Mustang in 2024. Teams kind of searching, but my gosh, there's one team. They are money right now. That's 6, and Brad Keselowski. You look at his last 7 races, the win at Darlington, 5 top 3 finishes at all these different types of racetracks. They've got speed every week.
And I feel like we've talked about it. When Ford has had the struggles, it seems like RFK's been the leader of the recovery chain. Last year, about this time, I felt like they were the best of the Ford programs. And again, I think they've done a great job coming forward and being aggressive. Part of that, I think Brad Keselowski has a lot to do with the mentality and the culture over there.
I always like to say sometimes, and it doesn't matter who he's been driving for or what car, Brad can be a contrarian. When everybody else is going left, Brad is going to go right. And I think that's what went on yesterday in that final stage. He had pitted at the end of stage 2 like a lot of other drivers, but then now when I say he, not Matt McCall as crew chief, Brad Keselowski made the decision to run long.
Yeah, if you looked at their day, they had a poor pit stop there early, had to come back for what was, I think, a loose left rear, came back the next lap and tightened that up. But that lost all their track position, went through kind of a normal day, stopped the end of stage 1. When you look at it here, stopped at the end of stage 1, they stopped in the middle of 1 and 2, they stopped at the end of stage 2. That put them kind of on par with most of the field. Not the 3-stop strategy we saw some of the guys use, but they just didn't, when they got to this point here where the field started to cycle back through, Brad and Matt had a good conversation. Let's listen to that.
20's in. You can pit this time right here then. Can I go any longer? I want to keep going. Yes. You got 20 more if you want, man. Keep hitting those marks at the 16. Good lap. Yeah, let me keep going. Okay, 10-4, focus.
So I got a year in the Xfinity Series with Brad. I understand how this kind of happens, but it's just impressive that he's he's driving the race car, doing all the pieces, but he's trying to put together the strategy of the race. And I think a constructive conversation between him and Matt McCall, it worked out for him in the long run because of the circumstances here at Gateway.
Well, yeah, Matt started seeing all these other drivers pitting with 60-something to go, 50-something to go. And when he called Brad in and Brad says, I want to run long, essentially, Matt said, you got 20 more laps you can run on fuel. But yeah, what I saw with the lap times right there, I go back to something we talked about earlier. It's like it would fall off in the first 15 laps and it would just plateau. And even versus a lot of those drivers that had those fresh tires, at most he was giving up about 0.2 of a second a lap, which was not a whole lot with the lead that he had.
Yeah, and you looked at it, the opportunity there, if a caution comes out, it puts him in a great position. He cycled his track position. And as long as they come to pit road with more than 15 to go, they get the good out of that next set of tires. Ended up working out to what would have been a top 5 finish, but a 3rd place finish because of 2 having issues. But really a contrarian, but worked out well for him.
I was a little surprised when you see this stop here with 29 laps to go. I felt like that deep in the race, maybe 2 right sides was the way to go. But Matt McCall, Brad, they decided to go with 4 tires.
Yeah, I thought 2 might have been their call at this point as well. But I think 4 tires works out here because you get that really fire off pace that you get. We talked about those first 15 laps. It got them a drive forward through a lot of traffic to a solid 3rd place finish.
Yeah, they just keep on keeping on right now with this 6 car. Well, another driver and team that to me outkicked their coverage yesterday, Carson Hocevar in that 77 car, a career best finish, 8th. Maybe not the prettiest day on pit road, but they had a good race car.
They had a really good race car. This goes back to, this is where Carson kind of got discovered last year by Spire. Substitute for Corey LaJoya, as Corey was substituting for Chase Elliott at that point. Got him nosing, but he just definitely put a good race together. Had some problems on pit road, had a really slow stop early that lost some track position, but manufactured their way back. They were kind of on the same strategy as the Penske cars were. They split this to almost a 3-stop race. They had 4 because they had to come back about this one.
Yeah, this was a stop right here. You see it at lap 48. That would have been just right at essentially the end of stage 1. And they lost a lug nut, and evidently the tire changer didn't have a spare.
As you look at the tire changer here as we play this going forward, but yeah, the jack's dropped. He calls the jack man back. He's looking underneath the car for a lug nut. I can't believe he doesn't have a lug nut on his belt.
I bet they will at Sonoma.
Yes, I bet they will too. But a really slow stop here by the time they actually got a nut, got it on. They came back the next lap just to make sure toe links and everything because they had a little contact at some point. But from this point forward, they're P last, but had a good day and strategy working forward with a good fast race car.
Todd, people always ask me about expectations of a rookie, especially in the Cup Series, and I always say consistently, my expectations, run all the laps. And Carson Hocevar, since that wreck early in the Daytona 500, in the last 14 races, he has finished on the lead lap 10 times and completed all but 8 laps. That's exactly what he needs to be doing in this first year.
And the relationship of him and Luke Lambert has done a great job. They kind of started last year with a little fill-in role at the 42 car, but they've done a good job. And I think that Luke's experience with Carson being young, I think that marriage has been good. But as you see on this lap time graph, I'm really impressed with this run here. They just drove their way forward.
Yeah, he was racing with Denny Hamlin for 4th late in stage 2 and drove away from that 11 car.
Yeah.
One of the best in the business.
Yes, not a fluke that they finished there with strategy pieces, a good fast race car, and a strategy that recovered from an early penalty.
So Todd, we were at St. Louis, the gateway to the west. Now we're going to go all the way to the west, Sonoma Raceway, wine country. We're going to be turning left and right for our second time in 2024. We'll break it down because there's some differences this year when we go out there.
I'm Ryan Flores. Join Kim Kuhn and myself each and every week at Around the Track. We'll get you ready for the upcoming race weekends from short tracks to the Cup Series, whether you'll be attending in person or watching from home.
Coming your way each week is the best bets to win some easy money and driver suggestions to help pump up your fantasy lineups. Around the Track also tells you what to watch for in the NASCAR Regional Series and which young phenom drivers to keep your eye on.
Plus, our At Traction segment gives you all of the fan activities, concerts, and tailgating fun at the track. Be sure to check out Around the Track each and every Wednesday on NASCAR's YouTube channel.
Todd, I think we all enjoy road course racing. Sonoma will be our second road course race in 2024. But about the only thing that's going to be the same this year is where the track is actually located, a repave for the first time in 23 years.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Sonoma, notorious with high lap time fall off, strategies. Back in the days, did you save fuel to do it on two stops? Did you go 3? With all the lap time degradation, and I had some bald tires there. We'd run out of rubber at places. So be interested to see how this works out with a new repave. Should be where the tires go long.
Yeah, I know the 1 team, the 4 team, and the 19 team, they did the tire test out there for Goodyear, and it appeared somewhere around 3 to 4 seconds a lap faster than the old surface, and they said the mid-corner speed was just off the charts. It's going to be all about fuel. I don't think it's going to be about tires.
Yeah, I think, and the good part is that this is an old school weekend like you and I we're used to. We actually get a 55-minute practice on Friday before inspections, which that's worth explaining to people. You can change cambers, you can change springs, you get to do this, you can change anything you want to in a race car because you haven't had NASCAR inspect the car to impound it at that point.
Yeah, I think the anticipation, they'll know more after that practice, is the old run the race backwards. It's a 110 lap race. If you can run 45 laps on fuel, you're going to back it up to lap 65, and then you'll back it up from there to about lap 20. It's going to be about fuel.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And the fact that I think a scuffed tire will refire with all the pace that it had being a repave, that short pitting stage 1, if you can get to the point, as you talked about, if we can back this thing up here to 65, and then that puts us back in this range here, maybe just short of stage 1. We may see some guys have to flip the stage. We'll have to learn that. Nobody knows what the fuel mileage race is going to be here because they don't know with the 3 to 4 seconds faster what their mileage will be.
Well, and it could be another race like Austin Cindric stealing that win up there at St. Louis. You think about Michael McDowell, you think about Chris Buescher, Martin Truex Jr. He's won there 3 times, still looking for his first win. And we're going to be on the air this Sunday at 3:30 Eastern Time. I cannot believe it's our last race of the year. The NASCAR on Fox will be ending our 24th year. We'll see you out there in wine country.